Greetings, Vault citizens. Johnny5 Alive, your Vault Overseer here, and welcome to another episode of Vault-Tec Settlements Let's Build. And in today's video, we're going to be working on part 2 of Planet Armor. So stay tuned and let's check it out. Alright guys, diving right on into things. We talked about this in the last episode, how I was kind of took a step back from everything, and I was a little bit worried that we weren't going to get the composition and look and feel that we were going for, as well as trying to like one up the weapon shop and outdo ourselves and create something a little bit bigger and more with more characteristics and features. This is an armory after all. It should really scream armor. Yeah, we want to make this a little bit more imposing. So when we left off the last episode, I was talking about how I was happy that, you know, this episode's gonna be a little bit quicker, but we get the composition that we're looking for, and that's what we're seeing here. So the first thing I decided to do to try and focus that composition, I thought, what if I changed the sign, like moved it more towards the center? That gives me a little bit more a little bit more space to play with on the left and right hand side of the sign. That means I can build things on the left and the right and draw that kind of composition to the center a little bit. Sure, the planet armor is not going to be kind of in line with that one window or our power armor stations anymore, but it's going to be more centralized in the middle of the building. And that's what we're looking for. We want to have a nice composition and directional forces, and I think having the sign centered allows us to really build around it and kind of bring it all together. So right away, you can see here I'm slowing it down a little bit, taking a look at it. And I'm already feeling like it's doing its job. It's looking better. So I'm feeling a little bit better about where we're at now, and I know I'm going to add to that in a bit. So what I want to do is kind of build up our fort a little bit more, because the canopies and stuff like that, like we did on the last build, are part of that composition. It's going to add some height to the right side of this build. So I'm trying to figure out what kind of walls I want to do. And we were going with the black canopies. We don't have any green ones with these mods, unfortunately, but black and green metal, I think that's kind of more imposing than the weapon shop. And we're still struggling to get those color pops. Like the weapon shop, I think, out of the two of them is more vibrant, playful, and friendly. Well, I don't know, friendly, but the color pops definitely make it more vibrant. But we don't have that option here with the Armory because we just don't have as many green color pops. But that's quite okay. I think an Armory should be a little bit more grimacing, dark, and you know, have that power. Black, gray, all those neutral colors. They really do sell the feel of armor. So we don't need as many color pops. We have little bits here and there. I mean, our floors that we've got down there are made with, we have green pops there. We have the planets in the background for planet armor and all that stuff. So overall, I do feel like we have enough color here. So it's just a matter of nailing our composition and filling the top of the building. So that's what I'm doing here with the canopies. I'm trying to basically build up that right side and tweak the composition as much as possible. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to put a guard tower here. I was trying to find the different guard towers. I think that the one I ended up putting down in the beginning was the only one I could really find, so I'd go with that. It's kind of a cool little like area. You could, if there were a guard or a character in there, you would see them right underneath the planet. It peers over the whole building. It's the highest point of the building. So I quite like that. So I'm looking through some of the pieces, and I found this raider piece that has a circle and barbed wire. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. And if I scale it up, put it behind our armor sign, it kind of like outlines it a little bit, but also armorizes it. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to, this episode is all about armoring up our armory and really getting that strong presence and the armor on that building. So here I'm out of materials, trying to build some of this stuff that required skulls. So I'm going through the dispenser mod, trying to get materials that I need. And this stuff in the Raider, I think this comes with Nuka-Cola World, and I have a mod to unlock all the Nuka-Cola assets, and it's under the Raider stuff. I really thought having these spikes would give it the armored kind of like Mad Max armored look that we want to go for here. And it has the barbed wire. It definitely adds some character to our building here. So I'm really happy about these, and the fact that I could scale them up, rotate them. We can really get a lot of depth with these kind of spikes. And as I step away and look at it, you get a quick glimpse of it there. It certainly is bringing our composition together. So I knew I had it right then and there. All I have to really do is get these into place, scale them up, add some randomization to them. We also want a little bit of like, what do you call it? Scale. So like in the inside, we want it to be a little bit taller, a little bit bigger. And on the outsides, we want them to be a little bit smaller and scaled down. So it gives it like this nice rounded out feel. So we want to round it out a little bit, but we want as much of these as possible because it cleans up that barren roof that we had, fills the composition, and it really does bring it all together. And then from there, we have some stuff in the behind it, but it's starting to, the dead spots are filled up, so it's starting to bring it together. If we, later on, we'll probably add some flags. I think I had a radar dish, a few other things. And just trying to fill these little areas. So the side of the house was feeling a little bit bare to me. It just kind of like cut off and it dropped off. And I didn't like that. So we want to kind of round it out and soften that side up so it just doesn't have that cut off of the roof. And kind of have that armor rolling off into the other building a little bit. I really put that for sale sign down at the very beginning. And I really liked it. It's one of the biggest green assets that we can get. Unfortunately, I didn't have anywhere to put it, and not until now I realized that okay, we could put this on the side. Now, while it might not be on the front or somewhere where you can where it really stands out, I think we want to try and add some character to the side of our building, the back of our building. So all aspects of our building, front, side, back, they're all important. The flag really did work there. It added a little bit of color, added some depth, and it covered some stuff up, some bare spots. So I was pretty happy with that positioning. And here we have, I wanted to use that armor sign like I talked about it in the first episode, and I ended up just making my own or finding that other one and doing a combination of the two. But I didn't like the rustiness of it, the orange. So I figured we could use it back here. It says armor and there's like a picture of power armor on it. So I figured, I could just spell out the word power here and then have armor underneath it. This is our power armor display case or area. So back here is where all the power armors are going to be. So it'd be nice to have some sort of advertising, even though the back of the building isn't exactly our focal point. But you will come back here, and people who play this build or this save or whatever, put this into their game, they're going to be collecting power armor. And, they'll be going back there to look at it. And it's nice to have a little bit of signage there. And in terms of immersion and the guests buying stuff, they could go back there and have a look at the power armor. There's a nice little sign, and you pass through the garage to go into the power armor room. And I guess we could kind of pretend that the power armor is for sale in terms of immersion. So the top of this building, we have this roof that kind of slides down. I didn't want the actual rooftop to be something that you walk on. I didn't intend it to be part of the navigation. So I was thinking about doing some wall stuff. And as I'm playing with these wall pieces, I am thinking, okay, the back needs some wall pieces, but I didn't want to reuse what we did for the weapon shop. I want something unique behind the armor shop. But then, I wasn't really feeling this because these walls here, while they're green, they add to the feel of the armor shop. They're too short and shallow, and I really wanted barbed wire up top. So here we go. We found these castle pieces, and I think that represents the armory quite well. They're gray. They have that neutral color. They have barbed wire. They're very strong and sturdy. I think they work really well here. So we use that kit. I feel like keeping a couple of the green panels around. So I put a few in there so you can see it when you're coming in through the side, and then yeah, from the back though, we have a big presence of all these big armored walls. It looks pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. And yeah, so up top, I wanted to add some sort of railings. This shouldn't just be a flat roof where people could fall off the sides. Our intention was to allow NPCs to come up here. We do have a guard tower up here. Whether we put an NPC at the guard tower or not, we should still have the immersion up here. And I wanted to use these like cinder blocks for whatever reason, just to add a little bit more of that neutral coloring, and that's the concrete is that strong presence. And I wanted to do something a little bit different from our rooftop that we have over at the weapon shop. Well, the weapon shop rooftop is kind of bare and boring. It works, whereas this one we want that clutter, we want that the power, and I think adding some concrete cinder blocks does help there. So, and it just defines the personality and the fantasy that we're going for here. It's a little bit more cluttered on this rooftop, but the whole main point of that rooftop is to, I guess, access your power. We have a power generator, it's a reactor room, and that gives us like 150 power or something crazy. And then there's also a guard tower. Those are the only two reasons you would go up there. So I'm okay with it being cluttered. It's not like people are going to be up there walking around and stuff. You have access to what you need, and then that's it. So up front, we want to add a little bit more personality on the ground level. For our weapon shop, we did a lot of like shipping and receiving goods. We had barrels and barrels of ammunition and guns and things, mostly ammunition and things. I want something different over here, and we don't really have a lot of options for big powerful crates or power armor crates. So what I decided to do instead was to find something that was kind of rustic and charming in terms of like dry decorations, something that could go with all these spikes and things that we have up front. So I thought sandbags work really well because it screams army, and this place is like you're armoring your hero. You should be able to buy army clothes here. Helmets, power armor, everything. So I felt like the sandbags really did work. I mean, you could argue that sandbags are for, you shoot from behind them, but they're, in my opinion, they're made for defense. So, while you could have a sandbag at a shooting range and you're taking practice fire from behind a sandbag, really sandbags are meant for defense. So you hide behind them. So we have our building hiding behind these sandbags. And I thought those razor gains worked really well there because they kind of have that spiky feel. And that's kind of like the theme we're going for here. I found a couple lights there that had spikes on them and barbed wire. They look quite nice. And that's what we're trying to do in the front here, is just make it a little intimidating. So the razor gain it's an intimidating weed. It's an aggressive weed. So that would be the one kind of plant that works well here. We don't want to make it like a nice flowery garden out front. We want it to be a little bit imposing. And then we have some green ferns that I found with one of the packs. It adds those little bits of green, and I think for the weapon shop we added like brown dead ferns, so it does add to the color pops here. So I'm trying to put as many ferns in as possible, and then it's going to give us those little touches and those little hints of green throughout our build here. And we need as much color pop on this build as possible because it doesn't have as many options. So even just a few ferns can really go a long way in just bringing certain little tiny specks of color into the build. And rocks work really well here too because they're gray, they're neutral. They work well with all of our metal and things like that. So I figured a few random rocks make sense in the garden here, and they work in terms of tone, color, and strength. So they represent everything that we're trying to do here. So little bits of rocks here and there is really going to add to just the overall clutter and nature vibe that we're going here. And we want to add as much little details around as possible. I found this cannon as I was going through everything. I was like, I didn't know this existed. I had to go throw 2 cannons down at the weapon shop. So that'll probably happen throughout this build project. Sanctuary Reborn is about rebuilding all of Sanctuary, and once in a while I'll find little things that would work really well for one of our previous builds, and we change things as we go, but I don't think it warrants an episode of itself. Like, I want to go back and change the Minutemen sign on our Minutemen headquarters to blue. I'll probably do that in between episodes. And I found some cans that dangle from the roof that make sounds. I thought that would be really good for the weapon shop, so I threw that in there, and as you saw, I threw the cannons. And I'm sure as we go through to these other buildings, I might find something here and there that would work really good on this armory, and I'll go touch it in. Little tiny tweaks here and there. We have discoveries along the way. It doesn't hurt to go brush up on our old builds or make subtle adjustments here and there. I think that's fine. At the end of the day, we will show the whole project as a whole at the end, and if anything got changed, you will probably notice that in our final spotlight where we cover the entire build front to back. So those little things might stand out. So I wanted to have some kind of random weird interior. I found those pieces as I was going through, so I figured I'd throw them down. We don't really work on any of the interior in this build other than like a few lights, but there are centralized lights around kind of the interior, the outskirts of the interior. So our garage, power armor room, and little bunk up top there. So not the true interior. So yeah, I found these tin cans as I was just talking about. So I go put those down, and it makes a little jingle jingle when you walk in the store. So we will add little touches and stuff along the way. So here we go. We're at the cinematic shots. Like I said, it's a quick episode. It looks completely different than the last episode. You could see the composition has really come together. I like that radar dish kind of in between. It fills in that empty spot. But now we don't really have like any large empty spaces other than the backside here. We got some turrets down. It's a roof. It's a sloped roof. It doesn't need anything else. But even those railings, the cinder blocks and stuff like that, it really tied it all together. The green flag on the side with the green panels. We're getting a little bit more color pops here and there. But overall, like, this is more than what I hoped it to be, and I was super nervous about going into this build because I was like, how are we going to top the armor shop? How are we going to get its own characteristics, its own feel? And I think it really comes down to centering that sign, having those big green statues and heads, and then just throwing in that spikes everywhere. It really comes together feeling like a big heavy-duty armory, and it definitely towers over and imposes on our weapon shop. It is the bigger house of the two. It's the bigger shop of the two. It has more things to sell. There's more armor in this game than weapons if you include power armor, clothing, hats, all that stuff. So there should be more space. It should be bigger, and we pulled that off here with this build. So while it was a short episode, it's crazy because some minor tweaks to, you know, adding the armor, the centering the sign, building up our canopies, doing a few touches here and there, some rails on top, all those little things that we added. It was very quick, and I think with a 15-20 minute episode, that would have only taken me an hour and a half or 2 hours for the overall build. So couple hours, we drastically changed everything, got our composition to where we needed it to be, and we kind of solved all those problems of this isn't looking too good, and I think it came out looking better than I anticipated. Let me know what you guys think of it down in the comments below if you like the overall composition. But next we will be moving on to actually designing the interior of the shop. It's pretty much bare right now, and we're not going to be able to really put any power armor in there unless we actually go play the game, but the power armor slots are there and waiting for us. I want to collect the power armor and fill those up myself, so they are there. But in terms of our interior, we have 4 bedrooms, the big opening, and the garage. The garage I'll probably focus on the power armor and have power armor helmets and stuff on display. Interior will have armor racks, and then we have 4 different rooms, so I was thinking, you know, we could have guard rooms and then maybe some mannequins. We could dress up mannequins and put armor on them like I did for my Brotherhood of Steel museum. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out in the playlist column for Fallout on my channel. Boom. So we pulled it off, guys, in a couple hours, made some drastic sweeping changes to the armory, but I'm pretty happy of where it is today, and this is where I'm at the time of this recording. I have not built any more, so the next thing I do when I get into this game is to jump on that interior, and hopefully that'll only be 1 or 2 episodes at most, and then we could go on to doing the spotlight on this build. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this down in the comments below, and that's going to do it for this episode of Fallout 4 Let's Build. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, smash that like button. If you enjoy these videos, please do consider becoming a patron. Your support is very much appreciated. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.